I thought that maybe just a basic PineScript intro would give you a better sense of what you could do with it if you even want to pursue it. It's pretty easy to learn. It's pretty easy to make some basic indicators and stuff, but if nothing else, maybe it just makes you more aware of what you can do with it, an indicator, or backtest a strategy based on a theory that you have. So first thing that you want to do PineScript wise, actually the very first thing that you want to do is open up a basic chart of anything you want. Just having iShares Emerging Markets ETF up there right now, but anything that has good volume, and go to the public library, and you can throw these different indicators and strategies that have been created by other users on the chart, and then look at the code that they use to build it. Is probably the best way that I know of to learn how to do more complex things. And you can see, the likes over here indicate how popular the different strategies are, and you can favorite them so that you don't lose track of them. And you can also search if you want to find something basic, like say a basic moving average. There's built-in scripts for that, and then there's also stuff in the public library for moving average, or just a search of M at this point. But so go to the PineScript Editor, and automatically what it loads up is just a basic study, and a study is just going to be an indicator, something that's going to, a bar that turns red, or a line that plots on a chart, on the chart, one way or another. It's just, that's all it is just an indication on the chart. Whereas if you change this word to strategy, and then that opens up the potential to actually backtest these indicators. So if you have an indicator that that you like, you can convert it into a strategy, or just create a strategy from scratch that'll show you kind of the back testing of the theory based on the indicator you've created. I don't know. To me personally, I think it's easier just to start with a strategy. You can always just use it as an indicator until you want to test. I would do it. The first thing up here, obviously, you just give it a name, so keep it in the quotations, and you can see there's some basic syntax here. So there's a command in PineScript followed by parentheses that contain all of the different variables you can throw at it. So it'll make a lot more sense as we go, but we'll just call this a basic moving average strategy. And then when it comes to these keywords and the things that you have to put in to satisfy everything that this title, and then the other stuff after that is kind of, a lot of this is just optional. Like if you want to give it a short title, if you want to tell it whether you want the chart that you create to overlay the actual main chart and the price of the security, or whether you want it to appear below the chart, and be more of a buy-sell indicator off the chart. So we don't need to add anything other than a title at this point. I will just go ahead and throw in overlay. We'll go ahead and set that to true because we're dealing with moving averages. They're going to be close to the price of the security. And we'll change that up later just to kind of show how that works. With PineScript, it's really easy to create a moving average. You can choose a simple moving average by choosing SMA and then the parentheses. You can do an exponential moving average, EMA, in the parentheses. You can do, let's see, volume weighted maybe moving average, I think. Yeah, you can do that. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And if you, any of these, like the strategy, and there's tooltips that pop up when you mouse over it. This, tooltip pops up when you mouse over it. If you want to get more information on it, the quick and easy way to do that is just hold down the command button, or I think control on the PC, and then click on that keyword. It brings up a help screen that shows the EMA. But you can just scroll through and look at the built-in functions, built-in MACD. Alright, so basically let's just go with the exponential moving average, and we'll say what we got to claim whatever it is that our source is going to be. If we mouse over there, it'll tell us it wants, for the EMA function, it wants the source and the length. So the easiest source is just what this built-in plot that was here before says. We'll just say close, and that's gonna give you the price at the close of the bar, whatever that trading session is. But let's say 15-day exponential moving average. So here we have, PineScript is going to calculate that, but we've got to get that information stored into something. So we got to give it a name. Basically, we want it to hold that information, so we're going to call it MA1 for moving average 1, space equals space. Actually, you don't have to do the spaces there either, but I do. So MA1 is that exponential moving average of the daily close 15 periods back, 15 bars back. Let's do MA2 equals, let's do it the typical way this time, EMA close 25. Okay, so when we first opened Pine Editor, it threw in this basic study. All we did was change it to a strategy. We did tell the strategy we want it to overlay whatever it is that we draw onto this chart that's up here in the main window. We've got two variables now, MA1 and MA2, that contain the moving averages of the 15 and 25 bar of this chart. So now we've got to plot this, and this plot close, all that's going to do is draw a line basically on the close. So we're going to plot MA1, and that's going to be our 15-day average. That's the basics of getting that plotted on the chart, but obviously you want to tell it what color you want it to be. You want to tell it how you want it to appear on the chart, and all of those are variables. So if we mouse over plot, you'll see the first thing it wants is the series. What it's asking for is, what am I supposed to plot? And we're saying you plot MA1, 15-day close, moving average. Then we can give it a title. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll give it a comma, title equals quote, and we'll call it fast moving average. So next thing we can give it is color. Let's give it a color, comma, color equals, this time you don't have to do quotes. It's expecting a keyword. So we can say blue, aqua, fuchsia, red, green, lime, orange. There's quite a few built-in keywords. So color, let's just give this one, since this is our fast, let's give it lime. And you really don't have to do much after that. Usually when I'm putting a basic study together just to look at stuff, I'll go ahead and say line width equals 1, and also usually I'll say style equals line. Now, you don't have to define those because those are the defaults. If you just said plot MA1, it's going to plot a line, and I think the default color that it goes to is blue. But we went ahead and gave it the title, and the title matters. I'll show you why in a little bit. But and then gave it the color lime. Everything else in there, the style being a line, that's a default. Line width being 1's a default. I like to put them in there because as you change the study and you look at what it looks like on the chart, a lot of times you want to change those things or make them an input that you can control later. And I'll kind of show you how that works too in just a minute. But anyway, long story short, short story long, we'll plot MA2 also. All right, we'll try it. Might be messed up. Yeah, so it's going to default our script name to this. This is all private, so this is not shared unless you someday want to share it on the public side. I don't. And you can star it as a favorite just so you don't lose track of your own strategy. And there is something kind of weird about this. When you create a strategy, it seems like hours sometimes, maybe a day, before it actually will start showing up in your strategies, or when you click on indicators and look at your own personal library. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, we've saved it. If you do make an edit of any kind, even if it doesn't impact the script, that little red asterisk shows up, reminds you that you need to save it if it's a change that you want to keep. So it's not showing anything on our chart because it's not applied to that chart yet. So in order to do that, go over to hit add to chart. So that's going to show it up there on the chart. You can click, well, it's another thing. Since it is a strategy and not just a study, it automatically, when you add it to the chart, it's going to flip this pane down here over to strategy tester. This is if we had any entries or exits based on this chart that we've created or study that we've created, then the backtest information would show up here. We can flip back over to Pine Editor and see our code. Go ahead and click that tab again. That opens up more of a full screen and you can kind of see what's going on. So obviously in the 15 versus 25-day moving average, EEM, pretty much a bull market, hasn't crossed over with the slow moving average since back here in January 9th, looks like. Let's say we want to change these moving averages easily and quickly and see what that looks like on the chart. There's something you can do to your code here, and you can make inputs, and that'll make more sense in a minute, but you can create inputs where when you're browsing or you're just looking at the chart, maybe you're comparing different time frames and flipping back and forth and wondering what it would look like if instead of 15 and 25-day moving average, this was a 15 and 20. So what you can do is with scripts is you can click this format button beside your script that you're looking at, and that's going to pop up. Right now, not a whole lot that we can do here. You can change the style, and since we gave titles to the two moving averages, if you did want to change the fast moving average color to a different color for some reason, which one is which. So that's why the titles are important, I think. You can also, on the style dialog, you can change the type of all those variables that we specified in the code can be changed here as well. But there's nothing in here that gives us any control over these numbers, the 15 day, the 25 days. So let's do some inputs. Let's call the first one fast, and we'll give it an equal sign, and we're going to call a function called input. This can be as basic as input 15, and you leave it at that, or you can give it a whole lot more information. Slow equals input 25. So now we can go down here and we can change MA1. Instead of saying we want it to be 15, we're going to say we want it to be this, fast. Fast happens to equal 15 at this point. This just gives us a lot more control when we're looking at a chart to change those things. So go ahead and save that. So now we can click that same format button, and now we have this extra thing over here called inputs. So now we have a fast at 15 and a slow at 25. So if we want to change that and see what it looks like 15 and 20, we can just click this down a little bit, call it 20, and you know, it makes a difference on the chart. Obviously not a huge deal when it comes to what we're looking at here, but when we're dealing with a little bit more complicated stuff, it's great to be able to see it working together on the fly and what happens when you make little differences. There's a lot of other things you can do with the inputs too. I'll just say okay for now, go back to PineScript. So for instance, usually what we do with these inputs is give them a title. Fast bars back. That's really a technical title. It's awesome. What do we want to say? Def val just means the defined value that we're giving it is 15. And again, all this, if you mouse over input, it's going to show you the different things you can do. Def val, title, type, minimum value, max value, confirm, step, options. I like to do a def val and a step. Say on the fast we want to let it step up at 1, but on the slow we'll make that 5. Alright, so now we'll save. Alright, it's all refreshed. Go up here to our format, and while we're at it, style, can't really see that probably very well on this, especially on this screen capture, so just make the lines bigger. That's a 3 line width of 3 versus 1. So on the inputs now we have a title, fast bars back, the goofy title that I gave it, and when we click the up and down arrow, it's going to let us change that, but it's going to be one at a time. Whereas on the slow bars back, when we click up or down, it's going to increment at 5 every time because of the way we did that input and gave it the step of 5. Anyway, probably more information than you need just to get up and running anyway. So last thing here, let's say you want to make an actual strategy out of this, and you know, we look at what's going on here and say, okay, we've what do we have this dialed in at now? 5 and 45. Well, that looks kind of decent on this real short time frame here on the daily chart. So we'll just say fast at 9, slow at 45, and we kind of like the way that looks. Let's for instance. Go back in here, put that in as the the defined values. Let me say 45, and also line width. Let's just go ahead and change that too. Now when we hit save, we shouldn't see anything change up here. Alright, so it looks just like it did when we changed the inputs. Alright, so then the next thing would be a backtest. And so here, we could do a buy when the fast moving average crosses over the slow moving average, and a sell or a close when the fast crosses under the slow moving average. Makes sense to me. Looks like you get whipsawed right here by a couple of bars, but just for the basic info on how it works. The way I do it, I think there's quite a few different ways to do it. I do strategy.entry, and then it's pretty simple. The first thing you want to do is just give it a title, and I was going to say usually I just put the title in quotes without title equals that we did on the other things like the variables and things. But this is an actual ID, and we do put it in quotes because that's how we're going to close it later or sell it later in the strategy. So it's an ID. And while we're at it, we've got this moused over. We're going to call this buy, so we're going to put quotes and around the word buy. That's going to be our ID. And then this long on the next thing in the syntax here, you want to go true if you're buying and false if you're selling. So if you put false in there, it'll sell short in the backtest. If you put true in there, it'll buy in the backtest. There's a third option, and that is to close your buy or close your sell. So we'll show that too. Then the rest of it, quantity, limit, stop, and then the OCA name and type. That's all stuff that you don't really need to mess with for a while, unless you want to really dig in. So the only things that we're going to put in here is buy, true, and then there was one more in here that's really important, and it says, it's the last one, when. That's your condition. So we're going to give a comma and say when equals. So what is it that needs to happen for a buy? We want MA1 to cross over. So the way you can call a crossover like that is by typing the word crossover. Pretty cool. Clever. And then it's not going to do anything for you unless you give it parentheses, and then it turns blue, showing you that it is a function or a keyword, as I think I called it earlier. So crossover, what it wants is, it wants crossover x comma y, and it's going to be x, and it shows you in the definition there, x as having crossed over y. So we want the one that is crossing over to go first, and the one that is being crossed over to go second. So we want to say MA1 comma MA2, close that parentheses, and then we still have to close this other one that started the strategy entry. So now if we just run it, it's going to buy every time that crossover happens, which is going to be exactly one time, because we never tell it to sell, so it never does it, there's one trade. So we have to either close it or sell it, or sell it short in some other way. So we're just going to close it out, strategy dot close, and the way that you tell it which one you want closed is just that same ID. And then here you don't mess with true or false because we're not necessarily buying or selling anything. We just say we want it closed. So whatever the opposite direction of whatever you were going, if you were long, it's going to close it out. Give it a comma, and then when is this going to happen? When equals cross under. And so when the green crosses under the red, or in other words, MA1 crosses under MA2, we'll close it. In the parentheses for that, in the parentheses for the other one. Hit save. Yeah, I think we got everything. Okay, so then you get these things that that will pop up on your chart to kind of show you when the different market actions happened. The other thing you can do is look at your strategy tester now, and this one looks. So there's our strategy. It's 50%. 50% of the trades have been profitable. Doesn't look great because it goes back. You can hit list of trades to see how far it goes back. This goes back to 2004. So pretty bad track record for our strategy, but a chart, it's not overlaid. Generally like your oscillators, that kind of thing, stuff that may be based on relative strength, and that you don't want to overlay that on your chart. So just to show you quickly how that works, if we change this to false now and hit save, I think as of the last time I checked, it still doesn't do anything. Yeah. So, and you see also it reverted all of those trades back to our original settings that we had because we didn't hard code those back in. But it's still overlaying, and it's not supposed to. The way to fix that is go up here to your chart and close your basic moving average strategy. That won't close it out of your Pine editor down here. Just close that out, and then click add to chart again. And now it's got it opened in that separate window. So that's how that works.